the stories they put into your mind.
What are you running away from?
Well, who says I'm running away from anything? Maybe I'm running towards something.
The adventure's up in the air in this CGI-riddled retelling of the popular children's story. Nicholas Hoult is our lad, out to save a princess without bumping back to Earth. Ewan McGregor, Stanley Tucci and Ian McShane sprout up in support. There might be giants.
Fear of heights, fear of falling.
Well then don't fall!
Peter, would you trade your cow for this?
Well, of course it's not a cow in this, it's a horse, because it's all about upgrading to a kind of super cool, sort of late teen, young adult.
The horse is a modern version of a cow.
Well, yeah, it's not a little lad, it's a kind of young hottie, and it's not nothing as absurd and undignified and panto-ish as a cow. I surprised myself. I rather enjoyed this. I usually hate fairy tale reboots because they're so humorless and they manage to miss out the charm and strip out quite a lot of the psychological insight. I mean, we've all been kind of educated to expect a kind of Bruno Bettelheim kind of meaning in fairy tales, and the reboot is entirely separate from that tradition. It basically kind of overcomplicates it and loses a lot of the mystery and romance of fairy tale reboots, particularly the awful version of A Hansel and Gretel. But this, weirdly, was quite entertaining.
Is it a family movie then? We had Oz the Great and the Powerful, which to me felt like it was stranded between two poles in that way.
I think you're right. I think this one goes much more to the pole of family movie. Oz, in its way, I thought quite an interesting way, was trying to approximate some of the spirit of the original 1939 movie and trying to be quite dark in its odd way. And trying to replicate the eccentricity of that movie. This is really straightforward multiplex stuff. This is a Big Mac meal and there's no worry about what you're going to get. It's all pre-packaged. Everything about it is straightforward multiplex fare.
Andrew, we've had a lot of these fairy tale adaptations recently. As Peter was mentioning, we had Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters, a couple of weeks ago, and then we had Red Riding Hood, and then I think 2 versions of Snow White last year.
Yes.
What's the big deal? What's the appeal of these?
I think 20 years ago these things would have been cartoons, you know, like kids' cartoons, and then maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago they'd have been art house, subversion type of films, you know, Company of Wolves, that kind of stuff. For me, I suppose it's to do with the sort of all-conquering power of the superhero film, which these films sort of, you know, aesthetically resemble. And since those films deal very much in sort of mythology and sort of storytelling, the next step after you've run out of Batman, Superman, whatever, is to move on to fairy tales. I suppose the film that sort of began all this is possibly the Brothers Grimm, you know, the Gilliam film, where he sort of took those sort of stories and sort of turned it into fancy action, which I suppose he's been doing, you know, he had been doing that for quite a while in different ways before, but that was, I think, the first time he really sort of lasered in on a sort of already established fairy tale cycle and gave it the treatment, really.
I certainly agree with that, but I would add the caveat that Gilliam's treatment is much more complex and difficult and much more in this, what I identified as the earlier Bettelheimian tradition of trying to find the psychological mystery in fairy tales, because that in the Brothers Grimm, I thought Gilliam rather interestingly identified the humiliation of the little boy selling the cow and reducing the family to penury, and then the strange and ambiguous redemption of having been made to feel small, suddenly taking on a giant. I thought that was where Gilliam tried to engage with the dormant or potential complexity in the myth, whereas these things, they're, as Andrew says, they're pure superhero. There's no complexity. It's all obvious.
Jack!
What's he yelling? Giant!